It was the week before Christmas 2019. My mom and I were spending the holidays at my late grandmother's cabin in rural Vermont. She had passed earlier that year and left the property to my mom. My dad was overseas for work and wouldn't be back until after New Year's. My older brother had his own family now and was spending Christmas with his wife's parents in Florida. So it was just the two of us. We decided to spend Christmas at the cabin one last time, before putting it on the market in the spring. The cabin sits at the end of a long gravel driveway, surrounded by dense pine trees. The nearest neighbor is about a quarter mile down the road. My mom wanted to go through my grandmother's belongings and box things up while also trying to have a nice Christmas. I was home from college for winter break, so I came along to help and keep her company. We arrived on a Friday afternoon. The cabin was cold and dusty from sitting empty for months. I helped my mom get the heat running and we unpacked groceries. That first night we ordered pizza from the one place in town that delivered and watched old movies on the ancient television in the living room. On Saturday morning I went outside to grab more firewood from the pile beside the cabin. I noticed something odd. There was a single string of Christmas lights wrapped around the mailbox at the end of the driveway. They were plugged into nothing, just wrapped around the post. I asked my mom if she had put them there. She looked confused and said no. We assumed maybe a neighbor had done it as a welcoming gesture, knowing we were coming to stay. My mom thought it was sweet. I thought it was a little strange since we had not told anyone we were coming. 2 nights later, I woke up around 3 a.m. I am not sure what woke me, but I felt uneasy. I walked to the kitchen to get water and glanced out the window facing the front yard. I froze. There were more Christmas lights now. They were strung along the fence that bordered the property. They were not plugged in, just like the ones on the mailbox. They had not been there when we went to bed. I woke my mom and showed her. She did not seem as alarmed as I was. She thought maybe someone was trying to be friendly and decorate for us anonymously. I did not agree. The fence was at least 50 feet long. Someone had taken time to do this in the middle of the night while we slept. The next morning we drove into town to pick up a few things. When we returned, there were lights on the porch railing. Still not plugged in, still no sign of anyone. My mom finally admitted this was getting strange. She suggested we ask the neighbor down the road if they knew anything. We drove to the neighbor's house, but no one answered the door. Their driveway was empty and the windows were dark. It looked like they were gone for the holidays. That was the only nearby house, so this did not exactly help explain the situation. For 3 days straight, nothing else happened until Christmas Eve night. My mom and I were sitting in the living room after dinner. It was already dark out, probably around 8 p.m. Someone knocked on the front door. We were not expecting anyone. I started to get nervous. My mom walked over and asked who it was. A man's voice on the other side said, "Please let me in. I'm so cold." My mom asked what he needed and he said, "I've been watching you too. I know you're alone in there. Just open the door." My mom yelled for him to leave. He said, "I don't want to leave. I've been waiting for this." My mom grabbed me and we backed away from the door. We just stood there in the middle of the living room, staring at the door. After what felt like a full minute, we heard footsteps walking off the porch and crunching through the snow. We did not sleep that night. We pushed the couch against the front door and sat together in the living room with every light in the cabin turned on until morning. On Christmas morning, there was a note taped to the front door. It said, "To the best of my memory, I watched you all night through the window. You looked scared. I liked that. Merry Christmas." We left Vermont that afternoon and never went back. My mom hired a company to clean out the cabin and handle the sale remotely. Whoever that man was, I am certain he had been watching us since the first night we arrived. The lights were never a gift. They were a way of letting us know he was there, that he could get close to us whenever he wanted. The fact that he never actually tried to break in almost makes it worse. He got exactly what he wanted just by making us afraid. It was Christmas of 2017. My name is Jordan, and at the time I was 24 years old. My girlfriend Emily and I figured we'd spend the holidays just the two of us. No big fuss. We'd been together for close to 2 years, and this was our first real trip away without anyone else tagging along. My folks were cool with it since they were heading out to see my big sister in Seattle anyway. Emily's family had this weird tradition of doing Christmas on New Year's Eve or something, so she was totally free to join me. We booked this cabin off one of those rental apps you see everywhere. It was a couple hours north of Denver, tucked up in the mountains by this little spot called Silver Ridge. The reviews were solid, and the pictures made it look like the perfect hideaway. A snug A-frame surrounded by all those pine trees, just begging for a peaceful holiday escape. We rolled in on Friday or December 22nd. The drive was no big deal, but that last bit of road to the cabin was all gravel and ice, kinda sketchy. The place itself was small but felt right, wood paneling everywhere, a fireplace that screamed cozy, and a kitchen that worked fine. The owner had stuck a binder there with all the how-tos and a little note scribbled by hand saying Merry Christmas and all that. That first night, we whipped up some dinner side by side and threw on a movie using my laptop. It was just what we needed, you know? The next morning, I got up early while Emily was still sleeping and stepped out to eyeball the car. That's when I spotted something off. The gas cap was hanging open. I always make a point to snap it shut after fueling up. It's like second nature. I fixed it and shrugged it off, figuring I'd spaced out or whatever. Later that day, Saturday, we headed down to town for supplies and to poke around a bit. Silver Ridge was this tiny dot on the map, one main drag with a general store, a diner, a gas pump, and a handful of those cutesy gift spots. Emily wandered into one of the shops to browse, so I hung back outside. This guy comes up to me out of nowhere and asks if we're crashing at the Dawson cabin. That was the owner's name. I said yeah, and he grins and says he hopes we're having a good time. I didn't even get a chance to ask how he knew our deal before he just wandered off. I figured he was some local who knew the owner or something. Small town life, right? Everybody's in everybody's business. That night I mentioned it to Emily. She said it was a tad strange, but we ended up chuckling about it. We were the new faces in this mountain village. Of course, folks would notice us outsiders. Come Christmas Eve, Emily decides she wants to zip back into town for a couple things. She was set on cooking up a fancy holiday meal and realized we'd missed some stuff. I offered to tag along, but she waved me off, said she'd be in and out quick and I should just chill at the cabin. She grabbed the car and took off around 3 p.m. By 6, she still wasn't back. I tried her phone, but up there the signal was basically a joke. I hiked down the road a ways till I scraped up one bar and dialed again. No dice. I must have called like 10 times. Panic started creeping in for real. Around 7, my phone buzzes with some unknown number. It's Emily, and she's bawling her eyes out. She chokes out that she's in deep trouble, that these guys grabbed her. Before I can even get a word in, this guy's voice cuts in. He tells me to keep cool and pay attention, says they've got my girl and our ride. If I want her back in one piece, I've got to cough up cash, big bucks. He goes on that they knew we were from out of state, knew we had dough, knew we were solo up there, said he'd ring back with the details. I bolted back to the cabin and snatched my wallet. I had maybe $200 in cash in the cards, but what was I gonna do? No wheels, and the closest neighbor was a good mile hike. I started trudging toward town in the pitch black, fiddling with the phone for any signal to hit up the cops. Halfway down, I spot headlights barreling my way. It's our car. It screeches to a halt right in the road, and the driver's door swings open. Emily tumbles out and hits the ground hard. The engine's still humming, but the car just sits there. I sprint over. Her face is all bruised up, wrists marked like she'd been bound, and she's trembling and sobbing. I get her on her feet and peer inside the car, empty. Whoever was behind the wheel had bailed into the woods or something. I eased her into the passenger side and gunned it straight for the police station in Silver Ridge. On the drive, she spilled the whole mess in bits and pieces. She said when she pulled into the general store lot, this dude sidles up and mentions her tire looks flat, offers to take a look. She figures why not. While she's bent over checking it, another guy sneaks up from behind and clamps something over her mouth. Next thing, she comes to in the back seat of our car, parked in some unfamiliar spot. Her hands are zip-tied with those plastic deals. Two guys up front. One of them made that call to me. She overheard them yapping about scoring money off us, emptying accounts, maxing cards, grabbing whatever. But then one drops this line that froze her solid. They could fetch way more for her than any bank balance. The other one cracks up laughing. She knew right then they had no plans to cut her loose. The car pulls over at some point. Both guys hop out to chat, and she yanks hard enough to snap the zip tie. She scrambles up front and peels out. Said she just slammed the pedal and didn't glance back. No clue where she was headed, just drove till the cabin road looked familiar. Cops swept the area but turned up squat. No sign of the pair. They asked if she could ID them, but she said it was too dark and everything went down in a blur. That guy who'd chatted me up outside the shop earlier matched her take on one of the creeps. Police said they'd dig into it, but we never got a peep back. We bailed from Silver Ridge that very night. Didn't even swing by the cabin for our stuff. Just hightailed it to Denver, snagged a room by the airport. We caught a flight home first thing Christmas morning. I still replay that guy approaching me by the gift shop in my head. That smile of his. How he already knew our spot. They'd been eyeing us from the jump, the loose gas cap, the small talk in town, all of it. Just biding time till one of us was alone. If Emily hadn't busted that tie, if she hadn't floored it out of there, I don't know. I don't think she'd have made it back. This happened about 2 years ago, right around Christmas. My girlfriend Stephanie and I had just moved into a rental house in a quiet suburb just outside of Columbus, Ohio. It was a decent neighborhood, but the houses were spaced pretty far apart, and there weren't many streetlights, which made it pitch black at night. We had been putting off the decorating for weeks. It was December 23rd, and Steph finally talked me into it, saying we couldn't be the only spot on the block without any lights up. So, against my better judgment, I hauled my aluminum ladder out of the garage at 9:30 p.m. to string some icicle lights along the gutters. It was freezing and the wind was cutting right through my jacket. I was up on the roof, which was a 2-story drop, while Steph was down below, untangling the strands and passing them up to me. We had been at it for maybe 20 minutes when the staple gun I was using jammed. I tried to fix it, but the mechanism was frozen shut. I have a spare one in the basement tool chest. I yelled down to Steph, "Can you grab it? My hands are too numb to mess with this." She rolled her eyes, joked about how cold it was, and dashed inside the house. I heard the front door slam shut, and then nothing but quiet. That's when things started feeling off. Being up that high in the dead of winter, totally by myself, felt weirdly isolating. The only sound was the wind rattling the bare branches of the oak tree in the front yard. From where I was, I could see over the hedges into the neighbor's yard, which was completely dark since they were out of town for the holidays. I was sitting near the edge of the roof, trying to blow warm air into my gloves, when I heard a heavy crunch in the snow. It came from the side of the house right below me. I figured Steph had come back out, maybe through the side door. That was fast. I called out, leaning over the gutter to look down. But it wasn't Steph. Standing directly at the base of my ladder was a man. He was wearing a dark gray Carhartt jacket and a beanie pulled low over his forehead. He wasn't looking at the house or the lights. He was looking straight up at me. My heart hammered against my ribs. I froze, my mind scrambling for some logical explanation. Maybe it was a neighbor. "Can I help you?" I asked, my voice shaking a little more than I wanted it to. He didn't answer. He didn't even blink. He just kept staring, his hands buried deep in his jacket pockets. Then, slowly, he took one hand out and gripped the side rail of the ladder. My stomach dropped. "Hey, get off that," I shouted, trying to sound authoritative. "Back away from the ladder." He ignored me completely. He placed a boot on the bottom rung, then the next. He wasn't rushing. He was climbing with a calm, deliberate, steady pace. The aluminum rattled against the gutters with every step he took. I was trapped. I was 20 feet in the air on a slippery, frosted roof with nowhere to go. If I tried to slide to the other side, I risked falling off. "Steph," I screamed at the top of my lungs. "Call the cops. Now!" The man paused. He was about halfway up the ladder now. When he heard me scream, he stopped and tilted his head, listening. Suddenly, the front door directly below us flew open. Steph stepped out, holding the staple gun. "What? What's wrong?" The man on the ladder reacted instantly. He didn't look at her. He didn't try to finish climbing. He just let go of the rungs and dropped the 10 feet or so to the ground, landing in the snow with a heavy thud. Steph screamed as he scrambled to his feet right next to her. For a split second, I thought he was going to grab her. He looked right at her, his face illuminated by the porch light. He looked exhausted, pale, with dark circles under his eyes. But he didn't touch her. The police pointed out that the tracks didn't come from the street. They came from the backyard, and there were several sets of prints pacing back and forth near the back patio, meaning he had been watching us, or watching Steph, for a while before he decided to walk around to the ladder. We didn't move out or anything drastic, but we definitely invested in a serious security system the next day. We still live in that house, actually. But now, whenever Christmas rolls around, I pay a professional service to hang the lights. It's worth the extra money to not be the one stuck up on a roof in the dark again. My roommate Trevor's Christmas trip last year was the most paranoid weekend of my life. Trevor and I went to college together in Pennsylvania. He organized this whole get-together at an Airbnb cabin in the Poconos. It was me, Trevor, and 3 other guys from our friend group, Marcus, Dawes, Devin, and Kyle. We'd all known each other since freshman year, and we were juniors at the time. The plan was to stay there from December 22nd through the 26th, since none of us were going home for the holidays. Pulling up to the cabin was nice enough. It was about 20 minutes outside of Scranton, kind of secluded, but nothing crazy. Trevor already had the keys because he'd driven up earlier that morning to get things ready, which I thought was a little odd, but I didn't question it. The cabin had 3 bedrooms. Trevor said he and Marcus would share one. Devin and Kyle would share another, and I'd get the single room since I was the one who got carsick on the drive up, and they felt bad for me. First impressions, everyone seemed normal and relaxed, an expected vibe for a guy's trip. A little while later, we all just hung out, drinking beer, playing video games. Trevor had brought a small Christmas tree and set it up in the living room. We had dinner, which was just pizza, and other than that, it was kind of normal. After dinner, we watched a hockey game. I tried not to think too much about it, but I could tell Marcus kept glancing over at me for extended periods of time on a few different occasions. At one point, I finally looked back at him, and we locked eyes for like 2 seconds before he turned back to the TV. The next morning, December 23rd, I woke up and went to the kitchen. The other guys were already awake and sitting at the table. When I walked in, they all stopped talking. For some reason, feeling a bit paranoid, I paid attention to this. It was not at all what I was expecting, and it changed the whole trip completely. Trevor looked at me and said, "Morning." But the vibe was off. I asked what they were talking about, and Marcus said they were just trying to figure out what to do that day. I could actually feel my heart rate pick up a bit. We drove into Scranton and walked around for a bit. At one point, I went into a sporting goods store, and the rest of them stayed outside. When I came back out, they were standing in a tight circle talking, and Kyle had his phone out showing them something. When they saw me, they all put their phones away. I asked what they were looking at, and he said it was just some meme. I kind of gave them a suspicious look. They seemed to notice. That night we were back at the cabin. I went to grab a beer from the fridge, and noticed Trevor had bought a lot more alcohol than I remembered seeing the day before. There were 2 cases of beer and a bottle of whiskey that I was pretty sure weren't there when we arrived. I asked Trevor when he bought all this, and he said he'd picked it up that morning before I woke up. But I'd been the first one in the kitchen that morning, and I hadn't seen him leave. I couldn't sleep well that night. I was rolling around for hours wondering what was going on and if it had anything to do with me. And what the hell was up with Marcus? It was exactly midnight on Christmas Eve when I woke up to go to the bathroom and walked past Trevor and Marcus's room. Their door was cracked open and I could hear them talking. Normally I'd find this to be nothing, but under the circumstances I was finding this suspicious now. I didn't move. I stood there listening. Trevor was saying something about tomorrow night and Marcus said, he's not going to just go along with it. Then I heard Trevor say my name. He said, if he tries to leave, we'll have a problem. Then I heard someone else say something, and then another voice. Something was going on. I went back to my room, but I didn't know what to do. I thought about leaving right then, but my car was blocked in the driveway by Trevor's truck and Kyle's SUV. But what was going on was really starting to hit me in the face, or at least what I think was going on. That afternoon, Devin asked me to come help him bring in firewood from the shed out back. While we were loading up wood, he said, "You trust us, right?" And something about his tone was off-putting. It seemed forced and unnatural. He said, like, "You know we're your boys. You know we wouldn't do anything to hurt you." I asked him why he was asking me that. He said, "No reason, just making sure we're all good." That night, Christmas Eve, we had dinner and started drinking. They kept offering me drinks, and I started to feel like they were trying to get me drunk. Around 11, Trevor said we should all do shots of the whiskey. Kyle said, "Come on, man, it's Christmas Eve. Don't be lame." I did one shot to not seem suspicious, but then said I was done. Around midnight, I said I was going to bed. I went to my room and locked the door. About 30 minutes later, I heard all of them moving around the cabin. I heard the back door open and close. I looked out my window and saw all 4 of them walking toward the shed with flashlights. They were out there for maybe 10 minutes and then they came back inside. I went back to grab my stuff and leave. I unlocked my door and opened it slowly. The living room light was still on, but I couldn't see anyone from the hallway. I crept toward the front door. As I was getting close to the door, I noticed Kyle standing in the kitchen doorway. He said, "Where are you going?" I said I needed to get something from my car. He said, "At 1 in the morning?" I pushed past him and went out the front door. My car was still blocked in. I got in anyway and started honking the horn. Trevor came running out and yelled, "What the hell are you doing?" I yelled back that I wanted to leave and he needed to move his truck. Marcus and Devin came out too. I kept honking. I screamed at least 3 times. "Move the truck." Finally, Trevor moved it. I put the car in drive practically before I was even fully buckled and floored it down that driveway back to the main road. I didn't stop once except for gas. And at that gas stop, I checked my phone and saw Trevor texted me saying, "What the fuck happened?" I didn't respond. Not until later that day when I got back to campus. Marcus texted me saying they were planning a surprise for Christmas morning, and that's why they'd been acting weird. He said they'd bought me an expensive gift and were hiding it in the shed. I said, "I don't know what you guys were planning on doing. I don't want to know. Don't contact me again." I said this only because I knew there was no proof at all of what happened, or what might have been about to happen. After winter break, Trevor tried to talk to me in person. He showed me a wrapped gift and said it was a new gaming headset they'd all chipped in for. He said I'd completely misread the situation and embarrassed him in front of everyone. Maybe he was telling the truth, but I still don't think I was wrong to leave. The way they were acting, the things I heard them say, it didn't feel like they were just planning a surprise gift.